I know Commissioner Toyoka and Commissioner Webb are both excused. Work sessions are an opportunity for board members to discuss issues informally with staff and invited guests. The board encourages members of the public to attend work sessions and listen to the discussion, but there's generally no opportunity for public comment. Members of the public wishing to address the board are welcome to do so during the board's regularly scheduled meetings held twice monthly. First item is the agenda review. May I have any comments, questions on the agenda? We can move on to our presentation, the Lower Nehalem Watershed Council. And Zach,
Howdy there. Can y'all hear me?
we sure can. Lower Nehalem Watershed Council Coordinator, Zach Mallon. Welcome.
Thank you so much. So interestingly, or fun, or whatever you want to consider it, we actually went through a rebrand in the last year or so, and are going with Nehalem Bay Watershed Council now because we decided being lower didn't sound like what we wanted to be. And there's some name confusion in the local community between us and the community trust. So Nehalem Bay Watershed Council, and I am the executive director, Zach Mallon. And you know, every year we try to do a report to the county commissioners of both Clatsop and Tillamook County. So y'all know what we're doing because we have a county recognition from each of you that recognizes us as the Watershed Council for the Nehalem area, for the Nehalem Basin. And that actually is important for our continued funding through OWEB, etc. So this is one of our, reports about what we did in 2023. For those of you who are unfamiliar, we are the Nehalem Bay Watershed Council again. We have a new website. You can check that out. And we're made up of a group of local stakeholders. These include folks from private timber, the Department of Forestry, agriculture. We have a teacher on the board, and then some other interested private citizens. And the goal is to have a range of people and different stakeholder groups represented on the board so that we can be addressing issues for everyone interested in salmon habitat and habitat restoration in the Nehalem. Our mission, in brief, remains to protect, preserve, and enhance the Nehalem watershed through leadership, cooperation, and education. To do that, we work with stakeholders of all sorts to restore and enhance habitat for fish and wildlife while also meeting landowner needs and goals. We do that through research, project design, engineering, and habitat restoration in the form of fish passage projects, riparian plantings, in-stream enhancement, and whatever else comes up, tidal wetland restoration, that sort of thing. We also do a bunch of outreach and education. This actually in 2024, we had our estuary cleanup that happens every other year. We also hold speaker series events, and we do educational tours through the Explore Nature program. Though both of those activities have been a little slow lately because we've been so focused on the other half of our work, the habitat restoration recently. Where we do this work is in our coverage area. That is all of the Nehalem Basin downstream of the Humbug Creek confluence. And so that includes all of the North Fork Nehalem, that includes the main stem up to Humbug Creek, and that includes all of the Salmonberry River. So we're in Clatsop County, Tillamook County, and in Washington County, where we do our work. Brief history, for those of you who don't have a background in Watershed Council history. Oregon House Bill 3441 established the rules for watershed councils, and that was back in 1995. We're voluntary local groups. We represent a balance of interested and affected persons within the watershed. Independent 501c3 nonprofits with, like I mentioned, the county government recognition. We are non-regulatory and entirely voluntary as an organization, so we may solicit projects with landowners, but we'll never try and do something that they don't want to have happen. It's always voluntary. And we also serve on a variety of advisory bodies regarding habitat restoration and green infrastructure and that sort of thing. And our primary funding comes through the Oregon Lottery. So OWEB provides us funding in the form of grants, and that money is derived from the Oregon Lottery. So buying lotto tickets is good. In 2023, most of our income came from state agencies of some sort, be it OWEB or another grant source that was coming from the state. About a third of our income came in through what we're defining as private local. And so in this case, most of that was from other nonprofits that have awards that they are subgranting to us. So think the Oregon Wildlife Fund or the Wild Salmon Center or something like that. Most of our expenses were spent directly on habitat restoration, as you can see in the second chart. And this 39% administrative cost is a little misleading because that includes all of my hours, including those spent managing contractors, designing projects, and all of that. And so when we include my hours that we're actually working on habitat restoration focused grants, that pie chart looks more like 94% of our funding is going directly into restoration activities, and 6% is spent on overhead and keeping our doors open and that sort of thing. Which I'm really happy to make note of because I want our activities to be focused very much on directly habitat restoration. Speaking of which, 2023 was, like most of my years, very busy. We had research design, habitat restoration, several collaborations, and our several events going on in 2023. And I'm just going to highlight some new ones. Those of you who have seen my presentations before have heard about some of these projects in the past, and so I'm not trying to, keep talking about the same ones every year. Lots of design activity going on right now. We have a pair of culvert replacements going in off of Cook Creek in Tillamook County. We also have a pair of tidal wetland projects that we're designing and going to be implementing in the near future, and a major project up at the Salmonberry River confluence where we are going to be doing something that is more akin to some of the work that we see up in Washington, where they are doing big wood structures right in high energy environments. And so that's a pretty neat one. But today, I'm going to start by focusing on some of this tidal wetland restoration. Over at Bandy Slough, which is tributary to the North Fork Nehalem River, there's a tide gate that is in poor repair. And between the tide gate and the berm, it disconnects this wetland, this tidal wetland, from the North Fork Nehalem flooding effects. The landowners aren't using the tide gate. There's no structures down there. It's not used for agriculture or anything else. And so they agreed to allow me to remove the tide gate, reconnect the wetland, and do a bit of habitat restoration there. That's all pretty neat. The complicating factor here was that PacifiCorp has a power line running through the property. So we've engaged them and are working on a design process that will both keep the power line running, because I like having electricity, as well as provide that new tidal wetland habitat that is really important as really a bottleneck for our salmon populations. And so we have designs completed at 60% right now, moving into final design phase. And we're looking to actually implement this in 2025, which is pretty exciting. Toll Creek Habitat Enhancement is another tidal wetland project where, in this case, part of the land is still in use for agriculture, part of it is not. There's a tide gate that is blocked open and therefore not doing any good. And the landowner is actually fine with the current functionality of that field for forage. And so we are going to be removing that tide gate, putting in a bridge, converting the fallow field on the downstream end into a tidal wetland, and then also laying back the banks where there's significant erosion. That way the river, when it's flowing high and fast, will have a vegetated surface to encounter instead of just sediment, instead of just dirt. And that will help to manage that bank erosion that actually is eating away at the field they're still using. So neat project in the earlier design phases right now, but we're really excited and think that we'll be doing implementing this in 2026 once those designs are all done. Finally, we're working with Parks and Recreation Department and with the Department of Forestry to replace 2 fish barrier culverts nearby Cook Creek. And so one is a tributary to Cook Creek, one is just upstream along the main stem Nehalem. These 2 culverts block collectively a little over 2 miles of potential coho habitat. And so it's going to be pretty exciting to get these replaced. We're thinking the McPherson culvert will be replaced in 2025, whereas the Harless Creek is going to be going in 2026. Lots of active restoration projects going on around the, around the watershed. Focusing today on just this Malone project. Last time I was here, we talked a bit about the Nehalem River Ranch, where we're planting through knotweed and then using hand controls to keep the knotweed down while allowing a canopy to establish over top of it. And up at that property, we're also using flash grazing. Here at the Malone property, we don't have cattle available to do flash grazing on the property. So we are just getting those conifer trees established in this area up above the knotweed, at which point we won't need to do any hand maintenance to keep the knotweed down. And eventually that new conifer canopy will help shade out the knotweed, not completely, just control it, and we'll be able to help keep the banks in place there a bit better. I talked about the collaborations last time I spoke with y'all, but we're continuing on with our Nehalem Basin Partnership. Right now, we are in the final round of review for $2.5 million from NFWF, the National Fish and Wildlife Fund, for their coastal resilience grants, and that will be for both my coverage area and for the Upper Nehalem Watershed Council, and it'll be a lot of large wood projects, some funding going into that Coal Creek tidal wetland, and a lot of riparian planting to help mitigate flood effects and help keep banks in place. But the partnership is also pursuing other large grant sources like the FIP application and others. So trying to expand our work to make it really landscape scale instead of just individual project by project in the future. We're continuing to work as a collaboration of watershed councils throughout the North Coast, all the way from the North Coast Watershed Association down to Nestuckanesco and Sand Lake down in southern Tillamook County. And we're focused right now on pursuing a collaborative outreach program with consistent messaging so everyone really knows what services watershed councils can provide to them, and then they can go look up their own watershed council from there. We did the cleanup of the Nehalem estuary in March of this year, but I just thought it'd be fun to throw this picture up there as they're pulling a hot tub out of the estuary. It was successful despite the fact that March 9th had, I think it was close to 1.5 inches, if not 2 inches of rain, and wind gusting up to about 40 to 60 miles an hour, if I remember correctly. So pretty rough day to be out in the estuary, but still went pretty darn well. We are actually on track right now to have hired a second project manager by the end of the year. And so that'll expand the Watershed Council's capacity for doing a lot of this work. I'm really excited about that and hoping to have that finalized before the year's out. And we have a bunch of upcoming projects that we're working on developing or moving into the next phases, including replacing the tide gates on Gallagher Slough, which is the largest slough in Nehalem Bay, and so that drains about nearly 1,000 acres, and we're working with the two dairies that are on Gallagher's Flu, as well as the wastewater agency and the drainage district and the Tillamook County Creamery Association, and anyone else with a stake in that location. And then we have a bunch of other exciting work, both in-stream enhancements and riparian work, like we just put in a wood placement project this past month up on the Little North Fork, Nehalem. My list of funders and partners is always too long to run through, so I'm going to leave this up here for about 4 seconds more so you can get an impression of who is on the list, but it's always far more people than I can actually thank individually. And finally, with that, I'd like to open the floor for questions from y'all. I'm really proud of the work that we have done and are doing, and I'd like to hear from you now.
Well, thank you very much, Zach. It's great to see so many partners and stakeholders. And also, I'm just flabbergasted by that hot tub. How did that get in there? Man, oh man.
I mean, it is amazing what people either just leave on the bank
Yeah.
at the start of fall. And so if something's down low on the bank and
Yeah.
the floodwaters come up,
There it goes.
sometimes they float away. And sometimes people just kind of drop things off in the river.
Yeah. Yeah.
Unfortunately, you know?
Yeah.
That's also a thing that happens.
Commissioner Thompson.
Well, thank you, sir. Zach, do you want to put your screen down so we can look at each other?
Oh yeah, totally. I just thought you might want to look at my dog there, you know?
You have a fine dog. I like your dog a lot.
Thank you.
Well, so good work as always, and your devotion and consistency to this cause is so heartwarming. You've been doing this for a while now.
6 years as of October this year, so
happy anniversary.
Thank you. We're coming right up on it.
You are. So the Soil and Water Conservation District, do you partner with them so that you can, I would say, magnify your efforts in invasive species control particularly?
So we have not done a lot of projects with Clatsop soil water yet. Tillamook Soil and Water and I partner on some things, and also through the NRCS we partner with down there as well, in some limited capacities. It always depends on what programming people have going on with their particular district. And so because most of my coverage area in Clatsop County is timberland, there's not often a lot of crossover for us for those kinds of collaborations. Oddly enough, most of my agricultural land is in Tillamook County, and so there haven't been a lot of great opportunities for me to partner with Clatsop Soil Water so far. Though there were some conversations happening. Oh, that was with Columbia Soil Water. One of the things that we have going is that Nehalem Basin Partnership and the Soil Water Conservation Districts are invited to every meeting. And something we're working on doing as we build out some of these big grants, like that NIFWIF one I was talking about, or the FIP application coming up. Something we're trying to work on doing is building out a list of projects that partners can then pick up. And so even though we don't have a lot of agricultural land in Clatsop County for the Nehalem Bay Watershed Council, there is some in the Upper Nehalem Watershed Council's coverage area. And I believe managing a wood placement project on timberland would also be within the purview of the Soil Water Conservation District potentially. And so we're trying to get a list together for partners like Clatsop Soil Water and Columbia and such, so that they can start picking those up, so we have more project managers available for the partnership writ large. So that's not for me and the Nehalem Bay Watershed Council personally, but that's more for projects prioritized in our strategic action plan for Coho that the partnership, the Nehalem Basin Partnership, is trying to implement. And so, yeah, again, we haven't had much with Clatsop because of the nature of each of our activities. And, you know, the Nehalem watershed is a little bit further from the seat of Clatsop Soil and Water, kind of like it's a little bit further from the seat of Tillamook Soil and Water. So we've had a harder time getting shared projects, I think.
Just advocating for that because they're good
Oh,
folks.
yeah.
Gave them more money. Would like to see more benefit. Thanks.
And one of the things that we can do with some of these big block grants that we're applying for, like this NIFWIF grant that I mean, I just defended the final, I think it's the final review round for NIFWIF last week on Wednesday. When we're applying for these big grants like that, there's a lot of opportunity to have staff time for a soil water conservation district or another nonprofit to be paid for if there's a project manager available to step in. So it's a pretty fun thing to get to be involved in right now.
Good.
Yeah.
You.
Any other comments, questions? Well, thank you, Zach. We appreciate having you come present and sharing your good work with us. And again, the Nehalem Bay Watershed Council Coordinator.
Director now.
Director, perfect.
I joked for too many years that they were saving the director title until they couldn't afford to give me a raise anymore. But luckily, I got the title and a raise last year.
Oh, congratulations. Perfect 1-2.
Yeah, exactly. Well, thank you so much for having me. It's always a pleasure. And, you know, I always love sharing the work that we're doing down here because we are so busy. And that limits my opportunities to go tell people what we're busy with.
No, thank you. We appreciate hearing it. Thanks again for being here.
Great. Thank you. And I'll see you all next year at least.
All right. Sounds good.
All right.
Thanks
Bye-bye.
again. Next is our economic opportunities analysis planning update. And Jay Blake, our planning manager, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you very much, Chair Couila and members of the board. Looking forward to giving you a brief update on the status of the economic opportunities analysis. You will have ample opportunities to participate in some upcoming meetings, and I'll share that information with you here in just a moment. I'll go ahead and share my screen. Let's see here. There we go. So the goal today is to give you a little bit of information, some additional data, update you on some of the public involvement, provide some context for the buildable lands inventory, talk about the targeted sectors, and look at the next steps. Wait a minute, how did that hot tub get in the river there? Huh, I wonder how that happened. Anyway, so, all right, we're moving on. Let's talk about some data. This is information that wasn't presented last time, but I think is certainly interesting information that's incorporated into the overall goals of our project. This one talks about fishing and fisheries. You can see from the first graph on the left, the number of actual vessels registered in the state of Oregon has dropped dramatically since the peaks earlier in the last century. Boy, that seems hard to say, the last century. But the number of vessels has remained at a fairly constant level, at least since the 1990s. However, the revenue per vessel in constant dollars has increased. So what they're attributing that to is vessels are getting larger, and they're certainly becoming more efficient in their ability to produce and bring in revenue to whichever port they choose to use. The chart on the right talks a little bit about commercial fishing employment, non-tribal commercial fishing employment, and you can see that Clatsop and Lincoln County have the highest number of people who are listed in commercial fishing. This is a really difficult number to track, much like the forestry numbers, because of the types of ownerships, the independent contractors, and people who are not required to file certain employment records. So it's just kind of an interesting statistic. The next one is relates to farming, and this comes from the 2022 Census of Agriculture for the state of Oregon. And you can see that in the Northwest Oregon region, which is Benton, Clatsop, Columbia, Lincoln, and Tillamook, the number of farming operations, or excuse me, the number of farms has dropped in most of the counties except for Benton, all of the counties except for Benton. The amount of employees registered as farm hands or hired farm help has also dropped in all of the counties except for Benton. However, contrary, the actual amount of acreage that is dedicated to farming has actually increased in Clatsop County. So that means farms are getting larger, and that is a trend that is nationwide. So it's just kind of an interesting way to see that piece of information. Commissioner Banks, go ahead if you would.
Well, it's so the farms are getting larger, but they also may be becoming corporate. And so that could also be attributing to this trend is more of a corporate type farm operation where an agency is buying land versus it being a family farmed situation. So there's pros and cons to that conversation.
Commissioner Bangs, you're absolutely correct, and that is a trend nationwide. Corporate farming has pluses and minuses. The loss of the family farm is lamented nationwide, and so I completely agree with your analysis there. This is another one that I'm going to be presenting a little bit more on this upcoming month, and it's one that hits a little close to home. It's called the aging of our population, and the people who are moving here and the general age of our workforce is quite a bit older than it was 25 years ago. Not a new thing, but Oregon's labor force and employment department just released this past month an analysis of what that actually means to our counties. The chart on the right-hand side does show Clatsop and Tillamook counties having a higher percentage of our workforce at ages 55 and plus, 55 and older. 55 and better, I think is the correct term if I'm not mistaken. We are an older population. The number of people who are working in our county at the 55 plus age group is increasing. That's going to have an impact in 5, 10, and 15 and 20 years because the backfilling of the number of people we need working in our area is going to be a challenge for us to house and locate and actually get here. The other thing that's interesting that this chart doesn't show is the average age of people in our natural resource industries, our farming, our fisheries, and our forestry is significantly higher. So the age of the people working in those resource industries is quite a bit higher as well. The second area I want to give you some background or information on is the community questionnaire we did this past July and August. We had 184 responses, which I was very pleased with. The average respondent has lived here for an extended period of time. I have lived in Oregon for 10 years now, but I've lived in Clatsop County for 4 years. So I kind of fit into both of these categories. Then we asked which of the following statements applies to you. Are you a student? Do you not work? Are you retired? Do you own a business? Do you work part-time or full-time? And it was pretty evenly dispersed. The people who work full-time and part-time made up about 45% of the respondents. The people who are retired were about 27% of the respondents. This one I put in because I thought it would just be an interesting piece of information. Do you work from home? 27% of the people who responded said, yes, we do work from home. Now, it was an online questionnaire. Those people are already online and probably much more apt to take these types of surveys. But this question wasn't asked back in 2004, the last time we did this type of questionnaire. So this is a new trend that we're all very, very familiar with. What are the top reasons to live or work here? Number 1, natural beauty. Number 2, the oceans and beaches. Number 3, safe place to live. Number 4, recreational opportunities. There's kind of a theme there. People like living here and they like working here because of a lot of the natural resources that we have. It's an important part of who we are. All right. And you can see it. One of the top reasons to live here is not the cost of housing, just so you, I'm not sure if you saw that part. So this actually was my favorite question. What do you see are the challenges to the future economic health of Clatsop County? Pick up to 5. Number 1, number 2 were housing cost and housing availability. Far and away, everyone who responded thought that those were the biggest threats to the future well-being of our economy. The next level, the yellow ones, were lack of rail service, lack of developable land, environmental impacts, education and training. And then the other ones slowly reduced from there. But I thought the housing issue that we're all, again, very familiar with shows up very clearly as a major threat to the future health of our economy. What types of businesses should we pursue? Or what should we look for? Number 1, healthcare. Number 2, construction and trades. Number 3, tech-based businesses. And then the next category would be transportation, recreation, tourism, light industry, manufacturing, arts and entertainment. The lowest were other and lodging facilities. So it's interesting to see who may have answered this particular questionnaire. Now, it's not a survey, it's not scientific, but it does add to the knowledge base, or at least the information that we're considering as we move through our development of policies. This also was my favorite part. We asked them to write down, what are some additional areas of concern? Daycare services, absolutely highlighted there. Infrastructure needs, technology and nomad workers. A bunch of comments about we need more tourism, a bunch of comments about we need less tourism, we need more industry, we need less industry. It's a great place to live. There's too many people here. I just love how, when you give people an opportunity to write down things, that you get the whole gamut of this. Here's my favorite. It's a great place to hide. It literally, I chuckled. I did an LOL, laugh out loud, when I saw that. It's a great place to hide. So anyway. But I think the daycare services and infrastructure, I'm trying to pull these two ideas together, that daycare services, childcare services should be viewed as part of the infrastructure in our economy. And so you'll see that when you start to see some of the goals and policies next month. I'm going to go very quickly through buildable lands inventory. We redid it. Our GIS technician and department did a phenomenal job for us. I am absolutely confident in the work that they've done, much more so than what the consultants were able to provide for us. There are about 60 acres of vacant employment lands in unincorporated Clatsop County. That's not a lot. But on the flip side, there are a couple of areas, this one in particular in Napa, there is a cluster of potential development sites. And so from my perspective, this is something that we should be really focusing on. How can we create employment opportunity and tax base opportunity, given the fact that we do have some utilities in this area and there's some nice flat land in this particular area. The buildables lands inventory for redevelopable lands was much more difficult to calculate, because you have to look at lands that are developed and what is their potential for redevelopment. There's some criteria that the state sets out. Essentially, there's 11 acres in Clatsop County that meets the criteria of redevelopable. And really not a lot of opportunities. So you'll get more detail on that when you see the final document, but that's kind of the background. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention our favorite four-letter word, FEMA. It is something that is significantly impacting the ability for us to develop and redevelop. We are not exactly completely having our head wrapped around all the impacts here, but that's going to be a written part of our economic goals here, is the unknown impact of what this may or may not do to development lands within the county as well as within the municipalities. The last part I want to talk about, we're going to talk in the plan about target industries. These are the industries that we think we should really focus on and try to diversify the economy. We're talking about the blue marine economy, which includes fisheries, food processing, tourism, commodity movement, marine construction and repair. These are areas that would help us to create different types of jobs, different levels of jobs, but still utilizing some of the natural resources that we have here. Health and wellness. And this really comes up because we have two health systems serving our county that are both wanting to expand. And so there's different ways that we can try to support that. We want to really highlight the construction sector. This is where we're talking about how do we improve housing construction processes? How do we improve or expand trade, education, apprenticeships? How can we use the timber resource through research and development to help sponsor and move housing construction? Food processing, seafood processing, brewing, distilling, farming operations, and research and innovation in those areas. And where I'm talking about research and innovation, a lot of it is based on wastewater treatment for these types of businesses. All of these types of businesses create excess or difficult demands on sewer and water infrastructure. And so how do we do that? One of the other ones that is a little bit of an unknown is our tech nomads, people moving to our area because they can, and they bring their employment with them. So, all right. One of the things that I'm also adding this month is a focus on job training and workforce development. Commissioner Webb pushed the button on this last month, and I've followed up on it quite a bit. And what I'm finding is there are a lot of different organizations that are providing snippets and parts of job training. And so I'm trying to figure out how we can improve the service levels and what is being offered in our area. And I'm calling it from CTE to PhD. Essentially, how can we improve the CTE program starting in the high schools, through the Clatsop Community College, through MERTS, through Tongue Point Job Corps, all the way to Oregon State University and beyond. So there are so many different organizations, and I'm trying to find a way to wrap my head around that and see where we can provide the training that's actually necessary for the people who are needing to transition from jobs, but also for the businesses that are here and getting the employees that we need to meet those needs. This actually falls really in line with the very recently adopted 24-25 priorities for the Board of Commissioners here. Number one, recommendations from the EOA. We're looking at the action steps. We're identifying target industries for investment. Trying to find ways to expand local government revenues through job stabilization, tax-based expansion. And you'll see those once you see the action steps and recommendations in the next month or so. Supporting community efforts for workforce development, that has become a huge rallying cry around the need to diversify our economy. And childcare. Childcare, in my mind, has become part of the economic development infrastructure. Without those services, our businesses are going to continue to struggle to draw people and grow into what they can be. Last item. We have a technical advisory committee coming up on September 19th. All of you are on the list for that. You should get an invitation for that. We have scheduled 2 informal public open houses, one on a Saturday. I'll drive all the way up to Seaside to host at the Seaside Public Library. Then in the week before the election, the Monday before the election, we'll be meeting at Columbia Memorial Hospital at the Coho meeting room. Again, it's an opportunity for people who wouldn't normally join a Zoom meeting to come in and see what we're talking about in terms of trying to move the economy forward. There will be a planning commission public hearing and 2 county board public hearings, which will be scheduled after we have the open houses. So that is, oh, wait, let me back up. Forgot one more thing. Even in Arch Cape, look at that. There's a hot tub in the ocean. So anyway, we are done from the community development department, and I'm here to answer any questions that you might have.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions? Commissioner Thompson?
I think the hot tub is there because there's going to be a hot tub race. Just kidding. So this is such helpful information. Glad to have it. In terms of the mentorship programs, Cliff Tuttle, when he managed Hampton Mill, started that mentorship program. Cedar has adopted it. That reaches out into the junior high schools and high schools. The career days help. Also, Oregon Community Foundation has a scholarship that's just for Clatsop County residents with an emphasis on first generation college attendees.
Mhm.
So I don't know if you can, the other schools have scholarship programs, but taking into account the financial support that's available to support students seems to me an important part to look at the economics. It goes beyond what money is there to support our youth. And I don't know that they're all coordinated in one place. The counselors in the high schools may have a much better idea than I do, but that support I think is very important. And the guidance as far back into the schooling as we can take it so that kids see how their interests and their talents can, I would say, flow into a career track. I think that all of that is useful in terms of the big picture. I wondered what you meant by environmental challenges when you had that option available in your question. I didn't quite understand that one. Way back. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm Commissioner, I will go back to that. Environmental challenges, the idea behind that was, are there going to be negative impacts to growth on the local environment?
Okay.
And development always has impacts, and that did not show up as one of the top impacts or concerns that people had.
Not yet, just
Not-
wait.
Well, I understand. I understand.
Okay.
This is just a snapshot. Yeah.
Proactive, and it's an excellent piece of work. Here's the thing, infrastructure has to include internet, broadband capacity, because no matter what we're doing, education, healthcare, employment, social things, broadband, and the access to adequate and stable internet infrastructure is a missing piece here when you're considering that. Thank you.
Point well taken.
Commissioner Banks?
Did I mishear? Is there going to be a meeting spot in Arch Cape?
No.
Okay. I was like, what? I saw the 2 meeting spots, one in, South County, one in Ish County.
I said that I would drive all the way up to Seaside on a Saturday for the South County meeting. So.
Oh, okay. I was very confused there for a moment. Thank
Sorry,
you.
apologize.
No worries. I've got like 16 things going. So
Any other comments, questions? This is great work, Jay. I really appreciate having this information available to us. And I know that you've had really good participation from stakeholders in order to develop it. really well done. Hope we get a lot of people at the open houses to review it and provide feedback. But yeah, fascinating.
Just one last item. I did start working with community affairs to start putting together some promo pieces for the open houses. So that'll all be coordinated through them, and we'll do what we can to get as much input as we can.
Great.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Jay.
Yep.
Appreciate it. All right. County Manager, do we have anything else?
No, we don't have anything else. I just wanted to share, I put it in the Friday update, but I will be on grand jury duty, just so your board is aware, every Tuesday and Thursday afternoons, all of September and October. So sorry, I will not be as available as I once was. But it's I guess it's I'm gonna look at it as my opportunity to do my deed and my service. So, but
Well, we appreciate you doing your civic duty, and if you need that note that we offered to. No.
I don't think any argument that I was going to give them was going
No.
to persuade them to not have me there. So
No, we appreciate it and completely understand. Do we have
Once
anything
they
else?
get to know you, they
Commissioner
may-
Thompson.
I'm sorry, once they get to know you, they may excuse you. Sorry.
and anything's possible. So.
Well, thank you very much, everybody. We'll have a good rest of our week, and we'll have our regular meeting next Wednesday. So thanks again, and thanks for the testimony there, Commissioner Thompson. I can send mine along as well.
Yeah.
Take care. Thank you.